Welcome back to the deep dive. We're exploring something pretty fascinating today. Can we find real, solid personal strength by looking at, well, both quantum physics and ancient wisdom?
That's exactly the question, and
Yeah.
the sources we've looked at suggest, yeah, absolutely. They argue that true faith, emunah, isn't just believing blindly. It's actually a kind of deep knowing.
A knowing. How so?
Well, it's a knowing you get by really contemplating the universe, its structure, its vastness. And this journey, this contemplation, is supposedly the path to genuine inner strength and resilience.
Okay, so let's start there. This idea of moving from simple belief to, what do the sources call it? Decisive knowing.
Right, decisive knowing. We found this concept in the Sefer HaChinuch from the 13th century. It talks about fulfilling the commandment of faith optimally.
And optimal means?
It means getting decisive proof. It's when you don't just accept something because you were told, you reach a point where you understand it in your heart, you see it with your own eyes almost. It becomes obvious, undeniable, like an intellectual and an experiential certainty.
The sources brought up Abraham as a key example, didn't they? The Rambam's take on it.
Exactly. Rambam says Abraham came to know God. But how? Not initially through some grand revelation. It was through the careful study of the universe. He looked around, saw the complexity, the order, and thought his way to the source.
So contemplation, observation, that's the active path. It turns acceptance into something really solid, tested.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, what is the universe showing us today? With modern science, could that provide this kind of decisive proof?
Which leads us right into the quantum perspective, this idea that everything, literally everything,
From the tiniest particle to the biggest galaxy.
it's made of the same basic stuff, energy.
Precisely. It's a huge insight from physics, and it mirrors that ancient idea of unity. You know, when scientists look really closely at the subatomic level, solidity just vanishes.
The chair I'm sitting on isn't really solid. That's hard to wrap your head around.
It is. Matter, deep down, is mostly empty space. It exists as these patterns of energy, fields of probability.
Okay, but hang on. If it's all just patterns in empty space, how does anything work? How do we function?
Doesn't that sound a bit abstract for everyday life?
Yeah.
Maybe even irrelevant?
It can sound that way, I get it. But that's the key realization. The sources frame it like this. The solidity we perceive is just a temporary expression. Imagine the universe as a vast quantum ocean of energy.
Okay.
And everything we see, you, me, this microphone, the stars, we're like temporary waves on that ocean. Still the same stuff, just taking a specific form for a while.
So this view fundamentally challenges the idea that we're all totally separate, isolated beings.
It completely destroys it from a physics standpoint. Everything is interconnected energy.
Right. So if everything is unified energy, the next big question the sources raise is, well, where did the energy itself come from? And maybe even more importantly, what organizes it? Where does the intelligence behind the patterns come from? Good question. It couldn't just pop out of nowhere, right? And it doesn't seem random. Think about the intricate laws governing an electron, or the unbelievable complexity of a single living cell, or the fine-tuning of the universe itself.
That level of precision, it doesn't look like chance.
It points towards some kind of universal intelligence, an organizing principle that set up the initial conditions. It had to be external to the energy itself.
So the synthesis here is, this unified energy field must stem from something more fundamental, an infinite consciousness.
That's the conclusion the sources draw. This energy is the offspring of an infinite consciousness, the divine source, which means God isn't some distant watchmaker. He's, in a way, the very substance, the animating principle within every single particle.
Wow. So quantum physics, by revealing this underlying unity, kind of bridges the gap. It shows the material and the spiritual aren't opposites.
But maybe two expressions of the same reality, the same truth.
Okay, let's shift to the personal side. What happens to me, to you, the listener, when we really internalize this? That I, the world, the cosmos, we're all expressions of this one divine energy. How does that translate into personal strength?
The sources suggest it leads to a profound psychological shift. Imagine really knowing that the same intelligence that orchestrates galaxies is also handling the details of your life, down to your heartbeat.
The immediate effect would be less fear.
Exactly. Fear starts to dissipate because the feeling of being separate and alone, which fuels a lot of anxiety, starts to dissolve. Your sense of purpose can become clearer, too. You begin to live that idea from Proverbs naturally. In all your ways, you should know God. It's not just a nice saying. It reflects this deeper reality.
This sounds like it connects directly to that idea of radical trust, the fully realized emunah. Isaiah says, those who put their trust in God will have God's strength. But in a world obsessed with tangible certainty, money, status, plans, what are we actually trusting in?
You're trusting in, as the psalm says, the rock, not sand. The world chases certainty in things that are fundamentally unstable, temporary. The person developing this kind of faith learns to step into the unknown, leaning on that invisible strength, that unchanging source.
And this trust isn't just a fair weather thing, is it? The sources say it's often forged.
In the tough times, in the quiet places where the heart is stripped of illusions, when comfort collapses, when our carefully laid plans fail spectacularly, that's often the crucible for real trust.
Can you make that more concrete? How does this surrender look in, say, a modern high-stress life? Because surrender can sound passive, like giving up.
Oh, it's anything but passive. It's an active choice. Think about a bit of this. Laying down of the ego's demand for control is maybe the most powerful action one can take. Let's say a career plan completely falls apart due to things outside your control. The typical reaction might be panic, anger, blaming.
Sure, trying to regain control somehow.
Right. But the person cultivating trust uses that moment of collapse, when their logic and timing have clearly failed, as an opportunity, an invitation to rely on a higher orchestration they don't fully see yet.
The texts mention Aaron's reaction after losing his sons, and Aaron was silent. That seems key here.
It's incredibly powerful. Imagine the shock, the grief, the failure of expectation. His sons gone in an instant during a sacred act. His silence wasn't apathy, it was his profound act of surrender, laying down his right to understand, his desire for immediate answers or revenge. And in that silence, that bittle, there's immense strength.
But the world often sees that as weakness, doesn't it? It values fighting back, resisting, controlling the narrative.
Absolutely. It looks counterintuitive, maybe even foolish. But the sources insist this surrender is the path to genuine freedom. The practical result, immunity. When your anchor is beyond the chaos of the world, you become less susceptible to fear, manipulation, anxiety. Your security isn't tied to shaky external things.
So breakthroughs don't come from pushing harder against obstacles.
Not always. Sometimes they come from that surrender. Letting go of your logic, your timing, your need to control the outcome. And instead trying to align with divine guidance, even if it seems illogical or takes you on an unexpected path.
So this dependency on God, which the world might mock,
becomes your most incredible power. That's the core insight.
Yeah.
As the saying goes, in weakness, God's strength is made complete. The strength isn't generated by you. It flows through you when you remove the blockages of ego and the need for control.
Okay, let's tie these threads together now. Physics and faith. We said quantum energy holds things together invisibly. How does that relate to spiritual trust?
It's a beautiful parallel. Think about concepts in quantum physics like coherence and entanglement. Particles acting in unison, connected across distance, maintained by a deeper linkage.
Right.
Divine trust, or emunah, acts like that for the soul. It creates spiritual coherence. It aligns your mind, your heart with divine intention. It keeps you resonant, you could say, with the source of the universe.
So if trust creates the spiritual coherence, are there actual measurable benefits? Does the universe, or God, respond to this alignment?
The sources strongly suggest yes. God honors that radical trust, much like the physical universe operates according to its laws. When you achieve that inner coherence, mind, body, soul, aligned with the source, it generates stability, a sense of purpose, and inner balance, even if the world outside is chaotic.
And you mentioned neuroscience comes into play here, too. It's not just a philosophical idea.
That's right, it's fascinating. Research is showing that practices associated with trust and faith, like prayer and meditation, actually do things like reduce anxiety markers, improve focus. They seem to help restore the brain's own rhythms to patterns that reflect equilibrium and resilience.
So stressing about control literally creates stress patterns in the brain.
While cultivating trust and surrender can help restore a state of harmony physiologically, your biology seems designed to benefit from letting go in this way.
So the big picture, then, is both modern science and ancient wisdom seem to point to the same conclusion. The unseen reality, the underlying unity, is more fundamental than what we just perceive.
Exactly. And relying on the source of that unseen reality, that unified energy, is the ultimate form of personal strength because it fosters that deep inner stability and purpose.
It really brings us back to that verse from Psalms, how abundant and great are your works, God, with wisdom you made them all.
The earth is full of your possessions. Remember the Kotzker Rebbe's insight on that last phrase.
He translated your possessions differently, right?
Homiletically, yes, as ways to acquire you. The idea being that the universe itself, its structure, its laws, its beauty, it's all evidence. It's an instruction manual filled with infinite opportunities, especially now with scientific insights, to acquire that solid, decisive faith we talked about at the start.
It's quite a journey we've taken, from 13th century thought right down to subatomic physics. The core takeaway seems clear. Real strength isn't about brute force or controlling everything around us. It's about cultivating this deep, tested resilience that comes from understanding our connection to the source and practicing surrender, practicing trust.
And that quiet surrender, that bittle, it's not passive weakness. It's what unlocks this higher order of power. The sources even say it's something that frightens darkness itself.
That's a powerful thought to end on. It makes you think. If this quiet surrender, this letting go of our tight grip on control, is the real definition of power and freedom,
Then what are you holding on to?
what small area, maybe it's your rigid logic about how things must unfold, your anxiety about timing, your fear about a specific outcome, what might you be clinging to today?
And could letting go of just that one thing be blocking the flow of that deeper unseen strength in your life? Something definitely worth pondering.